Well, if you thought Lord of the Rings of Power, the Ring-a-Ling-a-Ding-Dong was going to go over well, Peter Jackson, the director of the much beloved original trilogy and the forgettable Hobbit series, has absolutely just pulled the pin and chucked a nade into the fandom. There's absolutely no chance that much of the modern day fandom, just like with The Witcher, for example, you have a lot of fans who read the books. Okay, there's like that core audience. And then you have, in The Witcher's case, almost as many fans who played the video game and are huge fans of it. Now, the video game was relatively respectful of the lore, and there really was no friction there. So those two groups combined. Here you have basically the same thing with Lord of the Rings. You have Peter Jackson's trilogy, which is much beloved, universally beloved, one of the best trilogies of all time, maybe the best trilogy of all time, and the book readers. Everyone agrees that it was great. Well, now Peter Jackson just absolutely blew everything up. We're going to get into all that after a quick word from this video's sponsor, Meta PCs. Huge shout out to this video sponsor, Meta PCs. Look, you've been around, you know that I've been talking about Meta PCs for a very long time. In fact, it's the primary computer I use. But it's not just because they're a sponsor. It's for so many more reasons. They have fully customizable, configurable PCs and all the hardest to find parts in stock and ready to go. They also have ready to ship PCs ready for you today. Here's a couple reasons why I like Meta PCs. First and foremost, it's veteran ownership. Meta PCs is a veteran-owned business. One of Meta's owners has served both in Afghanistan and Iraq and received a Purple Heart for his service. Meta also employs military veterans in Meta's Operations Center and also provides systems to veterans going back to school to help them re-enter the workforce all across the United States. They offer financing. It has 100% US-based sales and support. And when you receive your PC, it's ready to go right out of the box. You don't have to get complicated and set things up. You just plug it all in and you're ready to rock. And on top of that, Meta PCs is offering you, my viewer, a huge discount when you use the link in the description or you use promo code TheQuartering. If you use my code at checkout, not only do you save money, but you support my content and a company that will not bow to cancel culture. So maybe you're not ready to pick up a new computer today, but when you are, remember to go to metapcs.com and use promo code TheQuartering to support me and to save money. And everybody wins. You might not be in the market right this second, but Meta PCs has been one of my strongest sponsors and stuck by me through thick and thin. So when you are ready, just remember that promo code. Now, late Friday night, coincidentally timed, the release of the show is coming up soon. Peter Jackson says Amazon asked him to be involved with the mega budget Lord of the Rings prequel and then cut off contact. Amazon suggests the story isn't quite so simple. Peter Jackson says Amazon's Lord of the Rings ghosted him. Quote, "They asked me if I wanted to be involved and said, that's an impossible question to answer without seeing a script," said Peter Jackson. So they said, "We'll send them to you." And then they never did. Peter Jackson said he has no hard feelings towards the Lord of the Rings series. "I'll be watching it. If somebody makes a good film or a show, it's something to celebrate. One thing that I'm looking forward to is actually seeing it as a perfectly neutral viewer." You're not going to be perfectly neutral. Come on, playa. Quote, "In pursuing the rights for our show, we were obligated to keep the series distinct. We have the utmost respect for Peter Jackson and the Lord of the Rings films and are thrilled that he is looking forward to watching the Rings of Power," said Amazon. Zoinks! Zoinks! You see, just like when Disney ghosted Lucas, I don't know why these folks in Hollywood like to ignore creative individuals and hire uncreative people. I mean, you see, ultimately, that's what it is. Now, is the story a little bit more complex than that? Well, let's take a look. This vibe bounding into comics. The Lord of the Rings director Peter Jackson reveals that Amazon asked him for help on Rings of the Power, but then ignored him. They said they sent the scripts and never did. First appearing in the Hollywood Reporters Awards Chatter podcast, Jackson told the host Scott Feinberg that Amazon, quote, "asked me if I wanted to be involved. And I said, that's an impossible question to answer without seeing a script." So they said, as soon as we get the first couple scripts, we'll send them to you, he detailed, and the scripts never showed up. That's the last thing I heard, which is fine. No complaints at all. Well, he also didn't have to mention that, but he did. Later, joining The Hollywood Reporter writer Kim Masters on her business podcast, Jackson reiterated, about 4 or 5 years ago, they asked me if I would be interested in participating. So I said, have you got the scripts yet? Quote, because I know how hard the scripts were to write for the films, and I didn't know the people writing the scripts, the director explained. They said, oh no, we haven't got the scripts yet, but as soon as we do, we'll send them to you. So I was waiting for the scripts to arrive, and they never did. Yet, despite this, quote, ghosting by Amazon, Jackson said he'll still be watching The Rings of Power. Well, just putting that out there poisons the entire well. Because what it really goes to kind of show is that they had a chance to try and like bridge the gap and get the input from someone who's done it correctly, somebody who's done it right, and they just chose not to. They said, nah, we're not going to send those, or it's just not really important to us to have his input, which is obviously absurd. Maybe they thought, well, we'll get to it when we get to it. I'm not exactly sure what they were thinking, but I mean, it's Peter Jackson. Like, I don't really understand why you wouldn't like jump at the chance. Quote, I'm not the sort of guy that wishes ill will, he said. Filmmaking is hard enough. If somebody makes a good film or TV show, it's something to celebrate, which is extraordinarily rare these days. That's my anecdote. The one thing I'm looking forward to seeing is as a perfectly neutral viewer. I think that putting this out there was, he didn't have to say any of it. He didn't have to say that, but he put it out there anyway. So it's difficult to really take him serious that he isn't a little salty about it. And by the way, he's got every right to be. Jackson's recent recollections notably line up with the interview he gave to Metro back in 2018, wherein he noted that, quote, I don't have any thoughts on it because I haven't seen anything. I wish him all the best. If we can help, we certainly will, he said. It's a big task. In response to Jackson's claims, Amazon Studio spokesperson said, quote, in pursuing the rights for our shows, we were obligated to keep the series distinct and separate from the films. We have the utmost respect for Peter Jackson and the Lord of the Rings films, and are thrilled he's looking forward to it. I'm not exactly sure what that means. According to THR sources, though, this is far from the full story, as in addition to these reasons, Amazon reportedly ceased communication with Peter Jackson under specific direction from the Tolkien estate. As of writing, the specific reason as to why the estate wanted Jackson far away from the Rings of Power remains unknown. Well, could it be that, the Peter Jackson estate has turned into, if you look at any of these quote unquote Tolkien scholars, they're all like exceedingly woke. I don't know that Peter Jackson isn't, by the way, but maybe they were like, no, we want this like reimagining of Lord of the Rings too white. I don't know why the estate would, turn away from or specifically say you cannot talk to him. I don't know. Sources close to the project describe a complicated and delicate backstory of the situation. First, that the studio had a high regard for Jackson and that the Rings of Power showrunners had privately attempted to make overtures to the filmmaker. But as statements suggest, there were also legal concerns about keeping the films, which are owned by Warner Brothers, and the TV show separate. There have been executive changes during that time period in question as well as with former head of genre programming, whom once was described as an advocate for luring Jackson to the project, departing the company in 2019. Perhaps even more crucially, sources say that author J.R.R. Tolkien's estate was against having Jackson on board. This shouldn't be surprising, as the estate had no involvement with his films, and Christopher Tolkien has previously slammed the trilogy in the press as eviscerating his father's books, claiming they had turned his novels into action movies for young people that lack beauty and seriousness. but the estate is involved with the series. Amazon paid the estate an astounding $250 million for the rights to make the show. All of that said, one does not simply offer to send Peter Jackson a script and then leave the man hanging. Moving on, Jackson was asked also as the movie studio would greenlight his trilogy today, answering probably not. Not with a director like me and a studio that would put its money on the line for 3 movies. As for his trilogy legacy, Jackson says, if there's anything we gave to the ongoing community of filmmaking, it's that we opened up the CGI bag of tricks to have huge battle scenes. That's a bit of a modest answer, considering the epic fantasy shows like HBO's Game of Thrones would likely have never been greenlit if not for his trilogy's massive box office success and award success. I mean, I wouldn't doubt that. So the Tolkien estate and Amazon essentially leave the man hanging. Absolutely bad look just weeks before the show goes live. If the estate says no, can you really blame Amazon? Probably not. But I think I would have found a way. You know, I would have found a way to make it work if it were me. But it's not me, and I didn't write the books, and I didn't get paid $250 million as a family member for actually having done nothing. But that's neither here nor there. This show is off to a rocky start, probably only slightly worse. I mean, only slightly better than The Last Jedi. Or really the Disney series. The whole Disney prequel series. I'm sorry, not prequel series, but the latest ones. Other than Rogue One, most of the Disney movies have not been really kind to the fans, or really George Lucas. Now, George Lucas got his money. So there's that. I hope you enjoyed this video, though. What do you think? Do you think this show has any chance at all as the negative press continues to roll out before anyone's even had a chance to see it? There's going to be people that are like, Peter Jackson got hosed, I'm out. I'm kind of one of those. I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.